Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is the Oneness Podcast. I am Jessica Del Mar. For this episode, I sat down with my spiritual guidance to bring through information initially about the war, about things that are going on the planet that is of concern. We've got two wars going on. We've got a lot of fighting, a lot of duality, a lot of things in motion. And so I just kind of wanted to sit with my guides and see what wanted to come through to help align our energy, to help us balance our energy. And what came through, surprisingly, were things that went beyond just the wars on the planet at this time. It went into Stargates. It went into artificial intelligence. It went into UFO disclosure because everything is connected. So I want to break this information up into, at least at this point, 3 parts. So this will be part 1 of Stargate information. I want to first start off by saying that this information comes through from my internal guidance, my spiritual guidance, my greater higher self guidance, and I work with pure energy, so the information comes through from an energetic perspective. You have to keep in mind that there are many different perspectives, and every single person brings through a unique perspective. Not only that, but you have energetic perspective, you also have physical perspective, you have mental perspective, you have emotional perspective, right? So there's so many different facets going on, and my purpose here is to bring through a layer of perspective that hopefully helps add to the greater whole and adds to other layers of knowledge, information, and perspective that is already out there as well. So many of you will resonate with this information. There's going to be some of you who do not resonate with this information, and that's fine too. If you do resonate with this information, allow it to be a puzzle piece within a greater puzzle that you are putting together for your own energetic well-being, for your own energetic balance, for your own physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wholeness. So the first thing that I asked when I sat down to bring through this information is, just tell me what's going on the planet right now. There are wars happening. Is there anything for us to be concerned about? Like, just what's going on energetically? Let's tune in. And the first thing that came through is that it's not about the war. It's about spiritual resources. Most people are focusing on the physicality of this war, and the physical nature of this war is absolutely a facet that's part of the greater whole perspective, right? But again, there are many people focusing on that facet, the physicality of this war and of the wars going on in the world right now. And to be sensitive to the nature of how things are unfolding, we understand that it is a horrific upending of power versus powerless. You must know that the divine spark of the Creator is found on both sides, but to witness the intricacies of good and evil uprooting in the hearts of a mass of people is why you are here to hold your light. Your job as a light holder is for these very things, to shine your light in the middle of some of the darkest moments of humanity. We must not be all about what is physically unfolding, but we must remember to connect to the divine source within us all. These are times when people will question their faith, their connection, or God source itself. I asked, why does destruction occur and still there is a God of love? ? What came through is that the answer is because the human definition of love is not the source definition of love. The human definition of love is built upon how a person feels when they give or receive love, and is also based on the having or not having of love. But the source definition of love is what came through as the best word, I guess, at this moment To kind of sum up what the source definition of love is, agility, meaning source love is oneness and the keen knowledge of understanding how all moving parts work magnificently and gracefully together. There are different characters, different plots, different situations, different organs, different colors beyond the rainbow, different planets, different species, different everything. The human mind cannot fathom how all of these different things work together, but the love of Source immediately knows. We, as human beings, judge love based on good and bad, but the love of Source is non-judgmental and non-duality. We feel empathy towards situations, and that's what makes us human. But we must remember that God, Source, the Creator, is not human. It is not empathic. It is all-knowing. And so, in the eyes of Source, there are no mistakes, there are no wrong turns, no harm done. We know that this is hard for the human mind to fathom, to conceive, or to hear about. But judgment does not come from God or Source or the Creator. Judgment comes from your own souls. It is ultimately you who will judge yourself when the time comes. And God's love will always be there for you to embrace, whether you judge yourself kindly or not. The war is within yourself, and those who partake in the evils of the world will find themselves in the judgment of their own souls when that day comes. Those who are sacrificed open their souls to witness the judgments of those souls who condemn themselves. This war and every war is a war amongst souls who chose to either find solace or punishment for their actions, meaning there are levels of the soul in the process of transcending that either ascend or descend the experience as a soul. So this brought me back to the information that I brought through in around 2019, and I have a playlist on YouTube called The 7 Rays of Light and Soul Origins. So if you want to understand a little bit more about soul origins or the experience as a soul in terms of descending or ascending, definitely take a listen to that playlist. So basically, it's reminding me about the journey of the soul and how on a soul level it chooses to ascend or descend, and experiences such as a human experience on earth feed back into that soul frequency and help kind of move it through its path, which is why we choose these experiences in the first place. So it's connecting back to that. The actions of the human experience relay heavily into the frequency of the greater soul. Simply put, for those who seek earthly punishment, the soul chooses in a way to descend. For those who seek solace and restitution, the soul chooses in a way to ascend. But there are many nuances in between, and it's not that plain and simple. These experiences are chosen by the soul before birth, and there are infinite pathways and ebbs and flows in between to achieve a greater soul mission. God, Source, the universe, knows the moving parts of its creation. The free will to choose is why you came, but all of it feeds back into a greater rotation of energy that both expands and contracts. There must be souls that contract and souls that expand, and both sides play powerful parts in the greater whole. We must seek to understand the wholeness of things, despite how we may feel about the playing out of things. That was powerful when it came through. We must seek to understand the wholeness of things, despite how we may feel about the playing out of things. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't feel, but it does mean that we should be careful not to let our feelings be captured in what is playing out instead of remembering what lies beyond the surface. We are going to tell you something that some of you may feel some resistance to. All wars on your planet Earth are propaganda for an old world. They request your eyes, your ears, your emotions, and your energy, as well as physical, mental, and emotional participation. Wars are fought on the battleground of lower frequency, desiring to claim souls upon its soil. Be careful to use your discernment so you do not get trapped like moths to fire. Instead, during times of war, violence, and bloodshed, utilize your heart to maintain a frequency high above the battleground. Use your heart to hold space for souls that may still be trapped in that lower frequency grid. The wars currently happening are not spiritual warfare, but wars for spiritual resources. The reason is because higher frequency does not fight or battle. It simply is. It simply exists as a door to be opened. So there is no higher force fighting or battling a lower force. And those who are courageous enough to journey towards that door of higher frequency will find that they enter a womb that is energetically different from what is playing out on the lower dimensional earth grid. You don't go to war, nor do you battle with your opinions and your feelings. You learn to hold space so that the dense cloud coverage in lower frequencies has room to lift and clear. I asked, well, to be fair, isn't that more of a privileged perspective? We can say that while we have safe homes and lives and are not living in places caught up in these wars like many other innocent people. And what came through is, well, yes, the human mind will rationalize that way of thought. But the bigger question is, why am I here and why are they there? Why do they suffer and I do not? You must be very discerning in the way that you answer those questions, because you may get caught up in the war despite not physically being part of it. Your hearts and your minds will become part of the war, which only fuels it with more energy. It is not about you versus them or one side versus another side. It is about the whole. The whole is affected. You must learn to understand what role you play and what inner strengths you can utilize. Just because one part of the body is suffering does not mean that the whole body needs to suffer. Utilize your strengths to offer balance to the greater whole. This does not mean that you are not affected by world events. It just means that you are on a different timeline. It's more like a different dimension. What unfolds in a lower frequency dimension or timeline cannot necessarily interfere with your journey in a higher frequency dimension or timeline. The war for spiritual resources exists within the lower frequency dimension or timeline. It means that the battle is between the souls that exist there and the spiritual resources that exist there. With that being said, there are stargates upon the planet that are opening at this time, and the Earth is utilizing these stargates for a dimensional timeline jump. The Earth will propel energy from these stargates to jump into another dimension. The stargates are utilized within the lower frequency Earth grid because the Earth is what came through as compound matter. And although the gates of a higher frequency platform exist for people to access through vibrational alignment, the physical Earth plane still exists within multiple dimensions. And that's the compound matter of the Earth grid, essentially, because at this moment, it's what's compounded is the multiple dimensions of 3D to 5D, give or take energetically and dimensionally. So for many people, even though their bodies may be resonating and vibrating at a higher frequency, say 5D level, they still physically exist on a planet that still holds 3D lower frequency. This is why some of your manifestations may be having a harder time taking shape, because they're not meant to manifest while you are still in a 3D planetary existence. They're coming forth from an inner 5D higher frequency space within you, and therefore requires an outer 5D higher frequency space to manifest into. The Earth stargates are a collective effort from multiple star systems all working together to quote-unquote tether the Earth planet and reel it into a dimension that better aligns with the heightened frequencies being held upon the planet. So like I was saying before, the compound space was between 3D and 5D energetically, but now the planet is moving into more of a 5D to 7D frequency space, so that it shifts into sort of a new compound space. But the wars are another way to distract the planetary shifting and also to utilize the energetic space in ways never known before. The lower frequency Earth will always exist as a timeline, but when the stargates tether to a higher frequency grid, the lower frequency Earth becomes a space of what came through was the word demolition, meaning all that exists in lower frequencies that do not match where the Earth is tethering to, remember 5D to 7D, and beyond, give or take, will become areas of what came through as destruction. We do not say this to instill fear, we say this to instill faith. And we understand the many questions that come forth from this information. I didn't go too much into what it meant in terms of destruction, but what did come through is that there would be some sort of Earth catastrophe of some sort that we would witness play out. However, those who are in a higher frequency energetic grid will not be as affected, if you think of the whole, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, because this catastrophe, if you will, or destruction of some sort is occurring within, again, the lower planetary frequency grid. COVID was a microcosm of energetic tuning for you to understand where your frequency is at. As devastating as it was in many parts of the world, there were also people who were not as affected by it as others. These things are not chance. Everything is orchestrated on a soul level. It is not by coincidence or chance that one person is more affected than another by anything. It is all energetic. So learn through your experiences during COVID as well as every day. How was your energy? How is your energy? What did you do for self-care? What are you doing for self-care? How did you care for others? Were you in fear, or could you easily maintain your state of love? How did you hold space for yourself and others? How did you care for and protect your energy? These things are important so that you maintain, or so that you know how to maintain high levels of frequency, faith, and certainty in who you know you are, despite what is playing out around you. You must believe in yourself, believe in your wellness, believe in your love, believe in your light. And if it's authentic, then you'll see the changes happening for you towards that light. But if it's not authentic, and this goes for many people who hold false light at this time, then those people will also witness changes happening in alignment with their false authenticity. This is a call towards the light, and although we can't quite explain to you how things will unfold, we will say that you must trust yourself first and foremost. I threw in this question: are the wars fulfilling some sort of prophecy? And what came through is, yes. It directed me to James 1:14 in the Bible. Now keep in mind, I'm not a big Bible person, but every now and then my guides will direct me to some Bible verses to sort of confirm and clarify maybe the teachings of Jesus or the teachings of this greater God through a human perception. But anyway, when I looked up James 1:14, what that verse said, interestingly enough, in the New International Version, it says, James 1:14, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. What came through is, the prophecy is one of good versus evil. Sin does not stand in the way of your own light. Only your own judgment of it does. The prophecy of good versus evil will always rain the death of duality down on innocent souls. The test is not found in whether you are good or evil. The test is found in whether you are whole. Your wholeness is where you will find life. The journey of wholeness is one that integrates both dark and light, but you must first overcome who you believe yourself to be in either side and renew who you are in the wholeness of all of you. Those who still struggle in between will find themselves amidst the struggle of good and evil, with the sins of evil only becoming stronger in order to show them where the strength of love can be found within. Keep in mind that this Bible verse was probably shown to me because of my question asking about some sort of prophecy. And for most people, those prophecies come forth from the Bible. So just for context, I'm going to read James 1:12-16, because it kind of does tie into everything, especially in terms of our worries about the war and kind of just what's in our heart at this time. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. I think that has a lot to say regarding what's playing out in the world, especially regarding good and evil and everything that came through in this episode. So take that information as you will. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your support. That's what came through for this episode. I'll post part 2, hopefully sometime next week, and we'll talk more about these Stargates, artificial intelligence, and the energy of unification. If you'd like to receive the written transmission of this episode, head on over to my newsletter site. I'll post the link to my newsletter in the description of this episode. Sign up to receive all the written transmissions to all of the podcasts sent straight to your inbox, as well as other energy alignment messages. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your support. I'll see you in the next episode. Oneness, love, and peace be with you.